and welcome to EU SOM Update. I'm Audrey, and I'm 2, which according to the Behavioral Sciences module means that I am a moderately well-compensated obsessive-compulsive neurotic. When I feel the stress mounting, I find it helpful to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. But that can be terrifying too. Infectious diseases was pretty much 1,000 ways to die, not to mention a global pandemic and the constant threat of climate change. Climate change is the result of atmospheric warming due to the excess greenhouse gases that human activity generates. It impacts weather patterns, storm frequency and intensity, droughts, floods, and fires. These factors favor the dissemination of infectious diseases. Temperature, rainfall, and seasonal weather disruptions promote the geographic distribution and viability of water and vector-borne illnesses, as an example. Climate change has a tremendous impact on human health. The essential elements of health articulated by the World Health Organization are all under threat: clean air, safe drinking water, nutritious food, and safe shelter. The drivers of climate change and those who will bear the brunt of its consequences are not one and the same. Shockingly, this raises some questions for me. Let's begin by checking in with our neighbor to the south. Let's see if we can use evidence to try and convince someone about the realities of climate change. Please welcome Florida Man.
Thank you for having me, Audrey.
Can you please tell us your thoughts about climate change and what you think it means for the world?
Well, I don't know. You see, I've read in some places that water levels will only increase by something like 2 centimeters every year, which is essentially almost nothing, Also, there was an ice age at some point, and that wasn't human-made. So, these things don't really make sense to me.
It appears that Florida Man needs convincing. Let's check in and see what's been going on around the United States. Maybe that will change his mind. Here we are on the scene of the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. There's widespread power outages, water contamination, inoperative sanitation systems, and acute food insecurity in the aftermath. Survivors are often left to swelter in health-compromising heat and humidity and are vulnerable to vector-borne diseases. How are we managing the aftermath of Hurricane Ida?
We're here from the hurricane, and we're running low on bottled drinking water, thinking about getting some from the water fountain, but it's coming out this funny brown color, and we can barely wash our hands, get hand sanitizer. We're really worried about potentially getting some diseases. We've heard some things on the news about more things coming from mosquitoes, and again, just because of the water situation. It's really always too hot or too cold in here. We're super uncomfortable and grumpy, and pretty much always wondering where our next meal is coming from and how we're going to feed our granddaughter, Momo.
Yeah, we're just concerned about staying in these shelters for too long. Our child, Momo, she's only 4 months old. She hasn't had her booster doses for her vaccines, and she hasn't had her measles vaccine. Who knows what's here in this crowded shelter. We're also still in the middle of a pandemic, and flu season is coming up, and we're older, and we can't afford to get sick and not be able to take care of her, not to mention that the hospital beds are basically full beyond capacity. Who knows if we're going to be able to camp out at home for long, and if something happens there, if we're going to be able to signal for help. And who knows when the next storm is going to hit, because these days hurricane season feels year-round.
Yeah, as my wife said, we're really doing all we can to take care of ourselves and our precious granddaughter, Momo, the light of our lives.
Transitioning into a more urban landscape, Troy, what have you found about climate change and how it impacts us?
Good evening, and welcome to the Bernstein News Network. Thank you for that very touching and inspiring piece of journalism, Paige. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how climate change also affects animals. With animals and humans occupying the same space, we're not only finding the potential for animals and humans to interact more frequently, but also for them to compete with food resources. So what we are seeing here is a live feed of a reported incident of an animal searching for food in the home of an unsuspecting individual. And as climate change continues, we're going to be seeing more of these types of incidents. And for more on how climate change is affecting animals, I'm going to send it to local farmer Joshua Dean Preston.
It's like a rabbit and a chicken had a baby.
There's something called climate change. Now, as you can tell, I really like doing some urban agriculture. I like to do some gardening, some greenhousing. greenhouse gases. But unfortunately, one of the things I found is that I just get bit by mosquitoes all summer long, non-stop. It just breaks my heart. My wife says, "Oh, Josh, you better stop that because you just itch them. You itch them to the bone, and now you got scars all over your legs, and it's just." Now I'm sitting in the middle of my greenhouse here, and you can see it's getting nice and moist and hot. You ever heard of a place called Sri Lanka? These areas is the more moisture, the more heat they get. Essentially, the more mosquitoes are already there. They already have malaria problems. They just get worse and worse. And it ain't just the places that already have malaria. It's creating new places, like Georgia. The last decade or 2 decades in America, we've seen a massive uptick in mosquito-borne illnesses. You might say, well, why is that? You know, that's just a big coincidence. There's a lot more mosquito-borne illnesses than there was before. I'm telling you, it's climate change. And you don't need some highfalutin scientist to tell you this. Just hear me out on this. It's getting hotter and hotter. It's getting moister and moister. And you know what that does? It creates some environments that aren't really great in terms of mosquitoes. So listen, y'all. You can hear me out on one thing, it's this. It's getting hotter and hotter, and it's getting moister and moister. That's making more mosquitoes come further and further north. And you know what happens with that? There's lots of bad things in the mosquito bites that don't just make you itch. We gotta do something about this. We gotta be watching out for these infections. I love working outside. Farmers love working outside. Kids love playing outside. People like to run outside. But it ain't gonna be fun if we can't go outside because there's too much malaria. All right, and with that, back to you, Audrey. Go get it.
Parker, what have you learned from your reporting?
Thanks for that intro, Audrey. This is Parker Wynn, obviously reporting from a densely populated city scene. I'll be reporting on an article from the CDC website called How to Mitigate COVID-19 Transmission in Densely Populated Areas Globally. This article describes 4 key mitigation practices for COVID-19 transmission in densely populated areas. Mitigation practice 1, physical distancing. Mitigation practice 2, hand hygiene, wash your hands, people. Mitigation practice 3, clean and disinfect frequently. Mitigation practice 4, respiratory etiquette, wear a mask, people. Audrey, you look dumbfounded right now. Either you're shocked and have never heard of these mitigation practices before, or you may think that why am I reporting on this? This is so obvious. Well, this article from the CDC was updated on October 23rd, 2020. So let's get our act together, people. Closing statements. Adequate city planning and surveillance can be powerful tools to improve the global health and decrease the burden of communicable diseases. Community members must be engaged in the process of planning and implementing mitigation measures for them to be successful. Attention must be given to those living in areas where these 4 mitigation practices cannot be maintained. Identify trusted stakeholders and community leaders to provide feedback on proposed mitigation measures before they are implemented. You've heard me say mitigation 100 times in the past minute. That's how serious this is, people. Back to you, Audrey.
Climate change and its interface with public health and safety obviously have an effect on local businesses and city operations. Let's see what's going on with MARTA.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank y'all for having me. But I do believe that this is doing more harm than good, honestly. See, I've been part of MARTA for about 15 years now. Supervisor of about 4 sites for all of them, in Fulton County. And I just gotta say, it don't make no damn sense. To be honest with you, I'm just being frank. We're losing money. Every day, people want to talk about the car issue or too many cars on the road. What's your mission? Nobody want to use mine. My bus is empty. And then, with all these precautions now less and less people are using it. I like to think about, people who don't have transportation, they got to use them. You know what I'm saying? So now I got to look at all my locations, make sure the proper precautions are in place or in order. But there's no budget for that. What budget? There's no budget for that. Did you give me money? No, there's no money in there for that. So not only am I losing money because of these diseases, these pandemics, this COVID, people, more and more people are coming in less and less, and I'm spending more and more. So, you just got to think about, I get it. I know the virus is very serious. I understand it. I understand all of that. To all my friends, all my people, everyone I work with, everyone in my facilities, my cohorts. I'm wearing my mask right now. I think I take it very seriously. I just feel like you got to take money and jobs into consideration. I just hired about 15 people in the past 2 months. People lose their jobs. They don't just keep going. So we got to be better than this. Thank y'all.
So, Florida man, did we change your mind?
Yeah, Audrey, after seeing all of the evidence that you've presented, I just want to say you're right. I have changed my ways, and I'll do better to protect the environment in the future and to protect our world. Thank you so much.
This has been EU SOM Update. The Bernstein Group will see you back after Dedicated. Take care, everyone. Wash your hands and stay safe.